All right, guys. So I got a request to do AFR, target AFRs for Rotary, and I'm actually spending a nice day in the living room today. So what we're gonna do is discuss what our tolerances are for AFR gauges. You have to understand there's a timing. So the combustion event, you're watching what's already happened, right? It's not live. So that's the first thing you guys have to understand. So if you see a lean spot, that's already happened, right? It's not like as quick as that sensor is, it's still not perfect. And you really have to see there's a delay, one, and there's a tolerance, two. So, on a very good setup, we'll say that a car has a tolerance of about zero point 0.3 AFR. Um, of course, with higher end controllers, whether it's like a Motec or something integrated to where the ECU actually has its very expensive uh, heating element and tolerance based on exhaust gas pressure and temperature, because AFR does change based on temperature and uh, pressure, right? So the the sensor itself has an offset based on those, and unless you have a high end controller, it's not going to do anything like that, or the ECU is not going to know that that's what you want. So, stuff like Mtron handles that. Sorry, I'm moving documents out of the way for you. Um, we'll go over a few things. A general range for a car at, let's say, 0 psi. Uh, so atmospheric pressure is going to be anywhere between like 12.4 and like 13.5. So it's a pretty big range, right? That's going to be dependent on the vehicle, um, spark plug gap, temperature, elevation, stuff like that. Um, Cruising is generally almost always stoichiometric value for the fuel. So all these values I'm going to be giving you are going to be based on the gasoline scale, which is 14.75 to 1 or 6.5 to 1, or if you've got E10, it's 14.2 to 1. So generally, an O2 sensor is going to read always based on a 14.7 scale. They have a small multiplier on that, so you have to kind of take it as it is, assuming it's close. Um, so I gave you cruise, about 14.7. Gave you that there's offsets, there's delays. Um, the next thing would be like coming into boost. Okay, so a really solid point a lot of people are going to run into is like, okay, 12 psi. What's a good point for 12 psi? I would say somewhere around anywhere between 11.2 and 11.8 is kind of generally a good range. You'll find what a car wants. Um, it really depends on porting, if there's scalloping, if there's any kind of like high back pressure, like a small turbine housing on a turbo. Um, it all does make a big difference, and this is purely in reference to rotary numbers. So these are going to be different for any reciprocating engine or any other fueling. So, like E85, you can run leaner as far as the lambda value away from the stoichiometric. So, um, you could probably run like half a point leaner. But of course, if you want to read it as pump gas numbers, those are the ones that are less, right? So it comes down to balance of all that, right? Um, if you are finding that EGTs are going up, continuing to go up, it's likely due to timing. It's not usually fueling. So check into that as well. There are a lot of variances as you're tuning. You're going to find and say, why is it doing this here, right? So we have targets of pressure, uh, different fuels, temperature, and exhaust. Um, the sensors are not perfect, but we need to make them as close as we can with some kind of logic. So what I'll end up doing is I'll probably show another Mtron video, and I'll showcase what's going on with pressure and temperature difference of the exhaust and how to compensate for the wideband. And then, yeah, generally doing something CAN bus based is always best. You're going to have no analog input or serial input lag. You're going to have no offset. It's instantaneous, and if it fails, the ECU is like, hey, yo, this shit failed, limp mode, something like that, however you have it configured. So, hope that helps. That's 3 main points. I covered 12 psi, covered 0, covered cruise, but it's a general range, right? So you could even say like a lean cruise of, I've tested 15.4 to 1, maybe not the best for rotaries, but 15.4 to 1 to maybe 14.3 to 1. That would be your range for cruise. If you're going richer than that in cruise, you're just blowing through fucking spark plugs. You're blowing through fuel. There's no reason. It just, that amount of richness is going to do way more harm than good. Because I'll tell you what, you can run a car hot, but you can't run it on valid spark plugs. So you really got to consider that. Spark plugs should be lasting well over 10,000 miles, depending on your usage, depending on what the fuel is, everything else. So just take that into account. Do not run shit too rich, because it's just as bad as running it too lean. There was a really good video by CLR Carlos Lopez, and he was saying something to the effect of detonation and how do I explain this? Almost like hydrolocking is more common on rotary failures than running lean. Like if you'll see a lean misfire, you'll have like a warped apex seal, or sharp ports, or a bridge port's really common doing that, because you have high temperature center, and then the outers are getting cold. So because of temperature differential, you're getting cold, hot, cold, cause warpage. So that's kind of another little quickie, but that should cover AFR stuff for now. I'll get into more of these talking head type videos. I think you guys like these more than the tech ones, which is kind of interesting. So if you want me more on the computer side, showing the software, showing all the overview, I'll do that. If you want to see my stupid face and somehow I cut myself in the eyeball almost, I'll do these. So cheers, y'all. See you up on the pages.